The room was thick with tension. Cameras buzzed, journalists leaned forward, and the Senate chamber was unusually quiet for a midweek session. Chuck Schumer had just dropped a line that echoed across the room like a thunderclap: "Senator Kennedy is out of touch with the American people." For a moment, there was silence, then whispers, chuckles, a few raised eyebrows. But what came next, no one expected. Senator John Kennedy didn't flinch. He didn't rush to defend himself or fire back a sharp retort as so many politicians do in that chamber. Instead, he adjusted his glasses, set down his notepad, and looked straight across the room. "Out of touch," he repeated softly, almost as if tasting the words. Then, with a weary sigh, he stood up. "I suppose," he began, his Louisiana drawl cutting through the silence, "it's easy to call someone out of touch when you don't know where they've been or who they've buried." The chuckles stopped instantly. Every eye turned toward him as he continued, his voice calm but steady. "You see, Senator Schumer, before I ever walked into this building, before I ever signed a piece of legislation, I watched my father lose everything he worked for. He ran a small hardware store in Zachary, Louisiana. A storm wiped out half the town one year, and a banker from New York, one of your own, told him the loan he'd relied on was being reevaluated. We lost the business in a week. My dad never recovered from that blow." A few heads lowered. Kennedy's tone wasn't angry, it was human, raw, and real. "I grew up watching folks who worked harder than anyone I've ever known struggle to keep food on the table. People who didn't ask for handouts, who didn't complain, but who sure as the sun rises didn't have someone in Washington fighting for them. So if standing up for them makes me out of touch with this city," he paused, letting the weight of his words fill the air, "then I'll wear that title proudly." The room was still. Even Schumer, who was rarely at a loss for words, blinked slowly, his confident smirk fading into something more thoughtful. Kennedy wasn't done. He took a deep breath and continued, shifting from personal pain to purpose. "When I go home, I don't go to fundraisers in glass towers. I go to parish fish fries, VFW halls, and classrooms where teachers are buying supplies with their own money. I talk to families who've had to choose between medicine and rent. They don't want pity, they want to be heard. And every time I walk back into this chamber, I remember their faces. That's who I speak for. Not the lobbyists. Not the donors. The people who feel forgotten because they don't have a microphone in this room." Reporters who had been ready to scribble another headline now just listened. Kennedy's words weren't about politics anymore, they were about pain, pride, and perseverance. "I may not speak the way some folks up here do," he said with a faint smile. "I might not have the fancy phrasing or the perfect poll test.